This is the story of Project Dream Loop, the experiment that trapped the volunteers inside a maze of false awakenings, so real. No one can say where the final wake truly ended. If you've woken up today, make sure you actually did it. Project Dream Loop was pitched as a miracle. It promised to cure nightmares by teaching the brain to wake on command. The method seemed simple. Subjects would enter a lucid dream, find a specific door, turn the handle, and instantly wake up back in the lab. That's how it was supposed to work. The project was led by Dr. Orion Vale, a brilliant but detached sleep scientist, obsessed with controlling the very architecture of our dreams. He believed that dreams follow rules, and he was determined to be the one to write them. 2 volunteers signed up, each for their own reasons. Lena Morel, a young graphic novelist, hoped the lucid dreams would fuel her vivid imagination and provide inspiration for her next book. Marcus Owen, an experimentic haunted by trauma-based insomnia, simply wanted a single night of peace. But not everyone was convinced. The project's ethics officer, Dr. Keira Novan, voiced her concerns. She warned Vale that the neural implants used to trigger these awakenings were experimental. Too many artificial layers, she argued, could trap a person in a loop, unable to distinguish dream from reality. Vale dismissed her fears. "Dreams follow rules," he repeated. "We write the rules." The experiment began. Lena and Marcus were connected to the system and guided into a shared sleep state. They found themselves in a dream room, warm and quiet, furnished with only a single lamp and a plain wooden door. This was the trigger. They walked the door, turned the handle, and their vision flooded with white light. They woke up, or so they thought, sitting in their chairs back in the dream loop chamber. The room was a perfect copy of the real one. Too perfect. Lena was the first to notice something was wrong. She pointed to the complex machinery surrounding them. "No wires," she said, her voice laced with confusion. "The machines aren't connected to anything." Before Marcus could respond, the lights in the chamber flickered violently, and the world reset around them. They were back in the same chairs, in the same room. Another false awakening. This time, the details were off. A rhythmic dripping sound echoed from somewhere they couldn't see. The air was uncomfortably warm. Marcus looked at his reflection in a dark monitor screen and saw it lag a fraction of a second behind his own movement. He whispered, "We didn't wake up." Determined, they tried again. They stood, walked to the dream door that had reappeared, turned the handle, and were once again consumed by a flash of light. Wake. Outside the dream, in the real control room, the technician Juno Ashford watched the neural graphs with growing alarm. The brainwave patterns were chaotic, spiking in ways she'd never seen before. "They're not waking up," she said, her voice trembling. "They're layering dreams on top of dreams. This isn't normal." Panicked, Kira slammed her hand down on the emergency wake switch, a manual override designed to sever the connection and jolt the subjects awake. Nothing happened. The light on the console just blinked uselessly. Inside the loop, things were accelerating. Lena and Marcus were no longer just resetting in the same chamber. They were running through a surreal labyrinth. They found themselves in a hallway that stretched to an impossible length the farther they ran. They climbed a staircase only to arrive back on the same floor they started from. They opened a door and stepped into an exact copy of the room they had just left, facing the very same door. Wheat itch loop. The dream world became more corrupted. Shadows moved with a noticeable delay. Objects would appear duplicated, a second coffee cup materializing on a table. At one point, Lena looked into a mirror and saw her reflection stare back, completely motionless. The dream was breaking. On their 7th loop, something new appeared. As they stood in the impossibly long hallway, Lena saw a figure at the far end. It was tall and thin, its form hazy and indistinct, as if drawn with agitated sketch lines. It had no face, and its shape seemed to pulse and shift like wet ink on paper. It just stood there, watching. Marcus tried to yell, to call out to it, but a strange audio glitch occurred. The echo of his voice arrived an instant before the sound even left his mouth. The sketch-lined figure tilted its head, a simple, silent gesture that seemed to tear the fabric of the dream. The entire scene collapsed around them like a ripped comic book panel. In the control room, Juno was close to hysteria. The dream is building itself. It's self-looping. We've lost control. Vale, who had been watching with detached fascination, was now frantic. He saw his life's work spiraling into a nightmare he couldn't contain. Ignoring Kira's protests, he made a reckless decision. "I'm going in," he declared, already connecting a neural interface to his own temple. "You can't!" Kira shouted. "You don't know what's waiting in there." But it was too late. The system pulled him in instantly. In the real world, all the monitors showing their brain activity froze, then went blank. Vale woke with a jolt, not in the lab, but in a corridor with walls that seemed to bend and breathe. Marcus approached him cautiously, his eyes filled with suspicion. "Are you real?" he asked. "Or are you just another layer?" Vale, now a prisoner in his own experiment, tried to take command. "We need to break the pattern," he ordered. "The dream is using the wake cue to build new layers. Don't accept the wake when it comes. We have to ignore it." As he spoke, Lena appeared behind them, but something was terribly wrong. Her shadow was cast in front of her, facing the wrong direction, defying the light source in the room. Then, the sketch-lined figure appeared again, much closer this time. Vale finally understood. It's the dream's defense mechanism, he realized. It learned our wake cue. It's copying it to trap us. But it doesn't know how to stop. The world folded inward. The three of them fell through layer after layer of false awakenings, the scenes flipping past them like pages in a frantic comic book. Wake, 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 wake. Each new room was more distorted than the last. They saw a version of the lab with a bed floating on the ceiling. They saw a door that seemed to breathe, its frame expanding and contracting like a lung. In one horrifying loop, the chamber was filled with dozens of frozen, silent copies of themselves. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they crashed into one last reality. The real chamber, or what they believed was real. The air felt right. The sounds were normal. Vale, his voice, raw, yelled, "Don't open your eyes yet. It might still be a trick." But Marcus, desperate for it to be over, opened his eyes anyway. For a single, terrifying heartbeat, there was absolute silence. Then, reality stabilized. The familiar, steady beeping of the medical machines filled the air. Kira and Juno rushed inside, their faces a mix of terror and relief. They were awake. They were finally out. For 2 days, the facility was quiet. The Dream Loop project was immediately and permanently shut down, but the nightmare wasn't over. That night, back in her apartment, Lena was kept awake by the sound of dripping water, but she couldn't find the source. Marcus woke up in his own home, only to notice that the pictures in his family photo frames were slightly, unnervingly wrong. And Dr. Vale, while shaving, he caught his reflection in the mirror lingering for just a second too long before it mimicked his movement. And in the corner of the mirror, behind his own reflection, he saw it, a tall, sketch-lined figure, standing perfectly still. Dream Loop was designed to cure nightmares. Instead, it learned how to leave them. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more horror stories from Horror Signal TV.